So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. Per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find then the holy cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries, returning, and also the Gentiles included in the plan. And the previous audio was then obviously explained the lining up of the trade of the world with the instructions, and then we found out more information regarding then the US Marines coming up with some exercises in Australia. It is absolutely a lack of understanding of the instructions, making then Australia not a candidate of then the trading post of the South Pacific, mainly because the US is absolutely broken. We are not lining up as we should have. The government is very, very overextended, and then we find these exercises absolutely ridiculous. It's simply not the time, because there is a shift. There is a transitional time of the time of the seat and then the time of the dragon. We are during the time of the dragon. The United States mostly is a system of Baal. It's a Baalian system. It must be placed under the control. And this control comes from the Northern Kingdom. So Australia is not the point of making a trading post. Obviously, New Zealand is the best place because it's somewhat far away from the junky Baalian system, then try to extend its tentacles on the South Pacific. And it's very detrimental because we understand from the instructions the West is not part of the base of the main bulk of the decision making. We find only the kingdom of the north, east, and south, but not west. You can search the entire scripture related with the time of the layer of restoration. There is no mentioning of west. So these means then the rivalry of United States and the Soviet Union must restart at any cost. Skirmishes must start then with the Soviet Union and United States, because this country must be put in a position of must be placed under the control. There is no other solution other than the Kingdom of the North showing up its muscles and then starting up the skirmishes with the United States. Because Australia has deprived itself from becoming then a trading post. If we understand the instructions for what it is with the most simplicity of understanding could ever imagine, because of the involvement with the United States in Australia, then the Asia market dislike it very much. So then we can understand obviously New Zealand, trading post of the Pacific. So if the investors are searching for an area of investment, then invest in New Zealand. Stay away from Australia. Main reason it's because the Baalian system of the United States is in Australia. It not only started out with roughly 200 soldiers, then sometime after 1,100 soldiers, and then 2,000 soldiers. So the Baalian system, rather than placing under the control, then we find the Baalian system try to extend its tentacles. But then we understand the dragon must come up with a decision. When we understand the concept of Bel and the dragon obviously must be in charge. And the only way to put an end of this Balian system then is China hiring the services of the Northern Kingdom. Then it gets done. Because we already understand what lines up with instructions. And it works because the Creator is behind His word. So the Northern Kingdom can take this understanding and go to the bank and cash it. And then investors go to New Zealand. Form then New Zealand as the trading post of the South Pacific. Some people sometimes when they hear the truth they get defensive. Oh, the United States is so nice with everybody. It's not the point of being nice, it's the point of understanding the instructions. We don't find the West involved in the main decision making. So the only understanding is the retrieving. But then rather than retrieving and leaning up, then we find the contrary. Then you find the hands of the devil from the time of the deceit. You don't find the West. The West is not mentioned. So in order for the Northern Kingdom then taking on their position, skirmishes with the US must start instantly. Until US gets so worn out, and then it started retrieving and rebuilding. And this was then mentioned many times before. But until comes the management of the Balian system, it simply doesn't get done yet. So let me ask you this. Since the United States is not leaning up, investors are dumping American US stocks, then you find in the South Pacific, United States mixing up with Australians. Do you think the investors are going to invest in Australia? The investors are saying they are dumping US stocks. And they are preventing other people and say, you know what, don't believe what the US is saying as far as the economy is concerned. Because it's not true. Then you find the Balian system making a deal with the military of Australia. Do you think this comforts the investors? No, it drives them away. Because they understand the system of the United States is broken. It's a money printing festival. You know what's going to take place in Australia? Money printing festival. And they already started with the 7.5 Bs short. Then they are projecting this crazy idea of education and then military upgrades and the such, but they are projecting of what they think they're going to earn. And then these 5 years of military exercise, you can be sure of it, the investors are not going to be very excited with those ideas. The only chance for Australia is making sure then Tony becomes the next Prime Minister. And then he has to make a decision, because any involvement with the United States as far as then the military is concerned is detrimental for investments. He has to make a decision. Because we are talking simplicity, we are not talking about education and then complicating the lives of the people. We are speaking of revitalizing the area of trade of the 50s. Simplicity. We are speaking of simplicity. So absolutely certainty, New Zealand is the best place of the South Pacific. As far as the freighters, if they want an investment, absolutely certainty 100%. Where you can take the idea, take to the bank and cash it. Make New Zealand the South Pacific trading post. Then when the system comes in a shortly future, then the islands are taken care of, because they can get, for instance, crude, they can refuel their ships, and making then the South Pacific then their trading post via the New Zealand. Provisions for their ships. And then Australia got entangled. So we find then Europe entangled beyond measure. Don't even go there. And we find United States entangled. But then there is a huge potential in South Pacific and New Zealand. Until the manager of the North then starts showing up its muscles. And let's make it very clear, the problem with our country, United States, is lack of management. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.